Identical twins of Reddit. What's the greatest thing you've achieved by swapping places without anyone noticing? Not exactly intentional, but I was visiting my brother's college campus, where he lived in the dorm. I parked and was headed in, when a pair of female hands covered my eyes from behind. I turned around and saw a pretty blonde girl, to whom I only had a chance to say hi before she threw her arms around my neck and kissed me. She then said, "Is your brother here yet? I can't wait to meet him," to which I replied, "I think you just did." She looked confused for a couple seconds and then turned bright red. When we both got inside, she beat my bro's arm for a solid 5 minutes. Apparently he had never told her we were twins, since they had only gone out for a few weeks at the time. They eventually got married, but the way she and I met gets brought up just about every family gathering. My brother and I went to the same college. On one occasion we both went to the library I was studying. He was meeting a classmate for a project. She ran into me instead and I pretended to be my brother. When it got old I went looking for him but couldn't find him, so I took off my jacket and came back to the girl. I introduced myself and explained that my brother was her classmate and I was looking for him. She said he had just left. I walked away, put the jacket on, and came back. She said my brother was looking for me. I kept leaving and coming back several times, until eventually my brother finally arrived. When she saw him, wearing something totally different than what I had worn with or without the jacket, she freaked out and yelled, "There are 3 of you." I have twin brothers. When they were about 12 or 13, my brother Gio was grounded from the computer. My mom was out, so he decided to sneak on. He was wearing headphones so he didn't hear when she came in. She caught him. He pretended to be his twin Dante. My mom doubted herself, called for Gio. Dante, having heard everything, responded, trying to help his brother out. My mom was confused for a bit, but being a mom figured it out. They both got grounded, but she admitted she was very close to falling for it. My twin brother was president of the class and I was vice president our junior year. When it came time for after school re-election speeches for senior year, my brother completely forgot and walked home. I did my speech for vice president, then borrowed a friend's shirt and made up a presidential speech for him on the spot. We both won. I taught swimming lessons for 3 years. During that time, I had one set of twins in one of my classes, who once switched swimming suits to mess with me, except I was still learning names of the kids in class. 50-60 kids' names to learn from all my classes, and called one of them what could have been the wrong name, except it was right, because they had also switched. His face adopted a surprised expression and he exclaimed, "How did you know we switched? Because I'm that good." My great-grandfather is an identical twin. Whilst leaving the church on his wedding day they managed to swap. For years my great-grandma thought that was a photo of her and her husband outside the church on the mantelpiece. About 20 years and he finally told her it was his brother on the photo. A professor at my school is a twin. He got his brother to impersonate him and deliver a lecture on comedy of errors. Then the actual professor comes in and proceeds to argue about who should be delivering the lecture. Shakespearean hilarity ensues. My identical twin brother wasn't the most dedicated student in high school. While I was focused on getting into the college of my dreams, USC, he would often skip class to go hang out with his friends and do things that I didn't find to be quite beneficial to my goal of success. Well, his ditching habits got out of hand. It was in the second month of senior year of high school, and his 0-period English teacher told him that he had 14 absences, and that if he missed one more 0-period class, he would fail the class and would not be able to graduate. This really threw my brother's life into gear and he began to come to school early and put his life back together. One day, it was 5 minutes before 0-period had started, and I got a call from my bro. His car broke down and he was stuck 2 miles away from school. He had been trying to fix it for the past 10 minutes and couldn't figure out what happened. I sensed the urgency in his voice and knew he wasn't bsing me. I agreed to take his place and miss my ceramics 0-period and take his English class. The only issue was that his class was on the other side of the school. By the time I went to his locker, grabbed his books, and ran to his class, I was about a minute late. I rushed in and saw the teacher give a sigh of relief when he saw me. So basically, I saved my brother from not graduating. No one noticed that it wasn't him and it was me, but I do remember this one girl coming up to me at lunch and asking why I changed clothes. Later found out that she was in the 0 period class. My twin and I have swapped places successfully in many situations, but the most recent was probably the best. My brother is an adjunct professor at a local university teaching web design. None of his students knew he had a twin. On the 1st of April, I came in to open the class instead of him. I casually said hi to about 20 students, discussed questions about a project, making it up as I went, and even discussed a student's grade before opening the lesson. No one noticed anything out of the ordinary. About 5 minutes into this, my brother threw open the classroom door and stepped in. He pointed to me and said, "Who is this imposter?" We didn't know how they would react, but we thought it would be a lot louder. Instead, most of the students' mouths dropped open and they just stared back and forth in complete confusion and terror in a few cases. Finally, I broke in and said that I was teaching my class, as usual. And who was this guy interrupting? He dashed up to the front and said it was his class and I should leave. We then asked the students whose class it was and about half got it right for bonus points and half got it wrong. Either way, we clearly made their day and we haven't been able to play this trick again for the past few years because it still gets talked about. Not me, but my dad and uncle are twins. Just a few years ago my dad fell off a ladder removing Christmas lights and broke his shoulder. After surgery dad had to go to physical therapy for a while. A few months in, my uncle comes up from out of town for some reason I can't remember and dad hatches a plan to be miraculously healed. He tells my uncle all the names of his receptionists and therapist. He wanted me to go in and film it, but I was afraid it would ruin the joke. So I'm told that my uncle goes in and starts going through stretches while the therapist looks amazed. She says, "My word, I've never seen such quick improvement. I never thought you would be able to lift your arm over your head again." What changed since last session? My dad's family are a bunch of wise asses. So my uncle starts telling the therapist about hearing of a home remedy by rubbing ostrich oil on his shoulder. Meanwhile, my dad goes up to the receptionist for his appointment and apologizes for being late. The lady just looks confused and says, "But you already came in?" My dad just looks confused back at her as she takes him to his room. I was told that the therapist gasped and took a triple take when she saw them both. Another shorter story is when my dad tried to withdraw $50 from my uncle's bank account. My uncle owns a small business and goes into the bank daily, so the teller recognized my dad. He goes up and asks for $50 from his account and the teller just gives it to him. This was a while ago before security was all the rage. He gives the money back and tells about him being a twin. The teller looked really embarrassed and was probably worried about his job. Not exactly swapping places, but my twin and I both got an awesome scholarship because of a clause that stated that twin siblings could both win the scholarship if they had similar GPAs. They're not twins, but my dad and uncle look similar and have a very similar sounding voice. When my uncle was visiting, they decided to go skiing on handicapped ski day. Since my uncle has a lot of handicapped friends who are into extreme sports, my dad was standing around at the bottom of the mountain when he ran into a group of my uncle's friends and they all got very confused. Half of the group thought that he had recently been through some kind of miracle while the other half thought he had been lying to them for the last 20 years. 5 minutes later, my uncle rolls up in his wheelchair. My dad has an identical twin brother. This is his famous story. My family is Iranian, and it is mandatory for young men to serve in the army for a minimum of 2 years. They do have few exceptions. For example, if your eyes are very weak and you can't see without glasses, then you don't have to serve. My dad had the weaker eyes between the two of them, so he failed his own exam. He took his brother's ID to the army officers and failed the exam again to get his brother out of that responsibility. When my brother and I were about 2 years old, we went to get our passport pictures taken. My brother went first and he got his picture taken normally, but for some reason, I was being a little butthole that day and I got to the point where I was screaming to my parents that I did not want my picture taken. They were not ready to put up with another minute of my nonsense, so they got me and my brother and they switched our shirts without the cameraman noticing. So, in my place, my brother took the picture with my shirt without anyone ever finding out that he was in both pictures. To this day, I still mess with other people to try to guess which twin is which in those two pictures. In college I emailed my professor I would be missing a 3-hour night class because of flu, Halloween parties. I walked across campus halfway through the class thinking it was clear. Nope. The professor lets the class out early for Halloween campus events and he sees me walking to said parties. Afterward he emails me calling me out for skipping class. Mind you, this was the best professor I had in college and I had to take more classes from him with my major later on. So I rolled the dice and told him that I was home all night and he must have seen my twin brother on campus. I told him I thought he knew I had a twin who was a different major by now because of previous classes. Then I provided him with a link to the track and field roster website to prove I had a twin who looked like me. Next week in class he apologizes to the entire class about how he fricked up and wrongly called me out for skipping. My mom is an identical twin. She and her twin would swap jury duty and get away with it. Which one of them was so boring they wanted to go to jury duty? Not identical twins, but we still get mixed up a lot. Anyways, I showed up to my brother's class to do a presentation. I'm a convincing speaker and he said he'd give me a hamburger. Teacher never found out. I love hamburgers. I am the older brother of a pair of twin sisters. One day, after watching Parent Trap, they decided to switch places at school. They were both in the 3rd grade and shared a class. The teachers caught on immediately. It may have something with one of them forgetting they switched and the other one loudly whispering, "No, you're me. Sit there." It made me laugh once I found out about it. My brother and I had the long con. My dad says that he got us so mixed up as babies that more than likely I'm my brother and he is me. My mother was not made aware of this information. My dad much later started painting the bottom of our feet different colors with nail polish so that he knew who was who. My brother got free drinks at my wedding from the bar because they were saying the groom drinks free, so he was scoring free mixed drinks all night. Didn't really swap places, but we both worked as bus boys in a restaurant. When we worked at the same time, customers thought we were one person, the hardest working person they had ever seen. The tips were great. Well, let me just tell you, I've done multiple job interviews for my twin brother. It definitely has advantages. One day, my brother got an interview at a rather large company in California. He was living in Washington at the time and I was in California. And not to say that I'm better at interviewing, though I am, but clearly it was more convenient for me to attend the interview. Truthfully, I wasn't too busy the day of his interview and I had the mentality that I had nothing to lose by going and acting like someone else, which I did. It was a group interview and I decided to be the annoying kiss ass in the room. I tried to stand out by raising my hand a lot and asking stupid freaking questions. I spoke up a lot and made kiss ass comments, and stayed behind after the interview to shake the hands of the managers who conducted the interviews. Sure enough, I get a call from my twin the next morning, and he said, "Hey man, I need you to be there at 12 PM to do second interview." Luckily, I was also free that day. Well, he got hired and drove down from Washington to California to start work 3 days after the second interview. It was some real Parent Trap crap, like explaining what people looked like, names, all that stuff. But no one noticed. Perks of being an identical twin. And that's one of many interviews I've done for him to get him jobs. Got caught skipping school. Gave police officer my twin's information. He had already graduated a year early due to skipping a grade. Officer let me go since I wasn't a student. My twin brother and I went to different colleges and didn't generally reveal to the friends we made that we each had a twin. One day a group of people approached me in the street, calling me by my brother's name and asking me if I would like to join them in the pub. I knew that my twin brother was already at the pub, so I said I'd bet them free drinks if I beat them to the pub in a foot race, even if I gave them a head start. They agreed and ran off at top speed while I stood there casually checking my watch and buffing my fingernails on my lapel, only for them to arrive exhausted and find me standing at the bar, drink already in hand. My twin and I pretended to be one person for 35 years just so that we could perform the teleporting man. My best man at my wedding was my cousin, who has an identical twin brother. Halfway through the ceremony, my best man started feeling faint, so he had to go sit down. As it neared the time for exchanging of rings, I noticed he had made his way back up, but as I turned to get the ring, it wasn't him. Thankfully, I had made his twin brother an usher, so they were wearing the same tux, and decided to make the switch. Nobody noticed except for close family members. I wish I had planned it that way. My twin and I aren't identical, but we look a lot alike. On April Fool's Day in 8th grade, we switched classes for the entire day. We had to have a handful of friends in on the switch so they could guide us to the right classrooms. It was difficult for me because he was in a higher math class than I was. During the last class, one idiot tried to snitch to the teacher. The teacher looked at me a good long time, and then said to the snitch, "You almost had me," and left me alone. My best friend had twin brothers. They were about 27 at the time. Brother A gets dumped. Bad. Brother B feels terrible, so he and friends take brother A out to get shit nozzled. Brother A was terribly shy and not great with the ladies, hence why he got dumped by a sea hag with ambiguous morality. Brother B is gregarious and charming, and also very committed to his long-term gal. Brother A spends the majority of the evening drowning his sorrows in tequila shots, while brother B spends his laying down some serious groundwork on a babe in the bar. Cue closing time. Brother B escorts lady outside and hails a cab, runs inside to grab his coat and quickly changes shirts with brother A. As he walks him to the cab, he is furiously mumbling trivia in bullet points as fast as possible. Diana, 24, sick major, 3 Cass, loves skiing, 1 sister, etc. That's a good brother. Getting denied a first sample at Costco because my twin already got one. P off a principal. It was in 5th grade, I believe, when we traded classes. The principal called my mom after finding out and wanted us punished. My mom asked, "So they are both in school and neither was a disciplinary problem? What is the problem here?" and left. You have been visited by the cat doctor. Comment cat health to get good health and do not get sick. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.